And so with a kind of the clinical thing kind of behind us, I want to now transition into mentioning these 5 nocturnal meditations, and then giving you a brief survey of all 5, focusing principally on the first 2, like I mentioned. And so the 5 practices altogether, the first one is called liminal dreaming, and I'll define that in some length because this is the one that is the most accessible for us. Previously, this particular dimension of awareness mind, kind of more academic scientific languaging, was called either hypnagogic or hypnopompic sleep. And it's very interesting. Hypnos is the Greek god of sleep, literally means sleep. Hypnagogia means toward sleep. So this is that dimension of mind that we all experience the minute we hit the pillow till we actually fall asleep. We are in that hypnagogic space. That's also a liminal space. Liminality literally means threshold. On the back end, when you wake up, or if you wake up in the night, but let's say you have a perfect night's sleep, you sleep all the way through, you wake up in the morning. On the back end, that's called hypnopompic state, leading away from sleep, leading away from the god of sleep. And so more on liminality in a second. The next practice, and this is the one that probably has the most traction in the West at this point, lucid dreaming. I'm going to say a lot about this with you. This is that really magical state of consciousness. Be very interesting to see how many of you have had this experience. It was scientifically proven in 1975 by Keith Hearn in England, and 77 by my dear friend Stephen LaBerge at Stanford. This is that marvelous state where one wakes up within the context of a dream, realizes that they're dreaming, and stays within the dream. They're fully awake within a dream. And it's getting more and more kind of mileage these days as the mindful dreaming. It's literally called mindful dreaming. And you'll see how this ties in when I get back to it. With some proficiency, lucid dreaming can progress into dream yoga. I'll say more about that in a second. With even more proficiency, dream yoga can mature into sleep yoga. In Buddhism, it's called luminosity yoga. Somewhat connected etymologically, at least in terms of the name, to what's called yoga nidra, because nidra means sleep in Sanskrit, but it's not the same thing. Yoga nidra is actually, for the deeper divers listening, yoga nidra is actually more associated with liminal dreaming. But sleep yoga, which is now actually being studied actively, I'm involved with some labs around the world helping design studies to prove this. Lucid dreaming has not been proven. Lucid dreaming has been proven. Lucid sleep has not yet been scientifically proven. And so there are some really sophisticated scientists, lab technicians around the world that are now actively trying to prove lucid sleep. And Tom Metzinger, who's one of the leading philosophers on the planet today, he goes so far as to say that when lucid sleep is substantiated, it will be a revolution in the mind sciences. And I have no doubt. I mean, like, it's complete oxymoron. How can you tell me that someone is actually sound asleep, they're in deep delta, you can't fake it, they're absolutely clinically sound asleep, and yet phenomenologically, they are awake? This is something you can train them. The sleep yogas are designed to do this. And then the last practice, I probably won't say much at all about this because this is pretty esoteric, but I've written some books on this topic. It's really very near and dear to my heart. This is how you can use the nocturnal practices as a way to prepare for the end of life, as a way to prepare for death. This is what's called Bardo yoga in Tibetan, where Bardo, B-A-R-D-O, is a word that means something like gap, transitional process in between. And I'll just pepper a few comments in towards the end, because this is a very particular spiritual approach from the Tibetan tradition that for those of you who are interested in using a full kind of integral broad spectrum approach to prepare for the end of life, Bardo yoga may certainly be something that you want to explore. But there is a particular narrative with all these practices that's worth stating at the outset. And this is this notion that each practice transcends but includes its predecessor. And by this, what I mean is that lucid dreaming, the second of the 5, transcends liminal dreaming, goes beyond it, but it also includes it, right? Dream yoga is the same. Dream yoga transcends but includes both liminal dreaming and lucid dreaming. Same with sleep yoga, same with Bardo yoga. And so it has that particular narrative or that kind of linear progression. And even though there is some linearity involved in exploring these practices, they're bidirectional, tridirectional. They all bootstrap each other. So the better you get at liminal dreaming, the better you're going to find yourself getting with the other nocturnal practices and vice versa. So they kind of lift each other up. And then also, there is a monumentally important daytime practice called the practice of illusory form. I did this extensively in my 3-year retreat. 12 hours a day, I did the practice of illusory form, which is a really sophisticated way to add a little bit onto normal mindfulness. So just briefly what this practice is about. In addition to simply being present and mindful throughout the day, at every moment of mindfulness, one is really exhorted to work with contemplating the illusory nature of reality. And this is where these practices go very deep in the end of the pool, where you can use, especially dream yoga, sleep yoga, as profound mediums for exploring the nature of mind and reality. And if you want to go in this to this end in the Q&A when we have a chance to talk about this, more than happy to give you a little bit of tour of that.